Welcome to the Natural Parents Podcast, where we will cover all things faith, health, family, and wealth through a biblical perspective of putting things in life that matter most back into order. We're reminded in Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, "But seek first the kingdom of God and all of his righteousness, and all of these things will be added unto you." Join us each week as we focus on what truly matters most in this life and passing those values on to the next generation. This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abby Hukin.
Welcome, guys. We are so excited to be here with you. If you are watching on video, welcome to our new space. That felt like MTV Cribs. But we are so excited to have this space and an official podcast recording. No more sitting in our basement
Or the camper
or all the different things. So if you're watching on video, we hope you love it and let us know what you think. But today we have a good topic that I feel like we have talked a lot about before, but maybe never on the podcast.
Yeah, and I think really it's the root of everything that we're trying to do or feel led and called by God to do with this Natural Parents Company thing. There's strongholds, there's opposing forces, if you will, in the world that I really think are trying to attack primarily the family unit. And what is the strength of a family unit except for a husband and wife and God interwoven in the middle of that, right? Scripture talks a lot about that, especially in the beginning. God set it up as such, right? That the two would become one. And when we're one, he says, in my opinion, that is the most image-bearing version of humanity that could be, right? Mm-hmm. Husband, wife, both yielded to each other who are yielding to God, right? And so there's so much of that I hope to talk about today. But my prayer is that it would be not condemning, but convicting.
Yeah.
Right? We talk about that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree. I think that a family is only as strong as the marriage is, and I think that just having that good relationship and trust involving different things is what really is going to make that, but then set the example for your kids and what they look for in a marriage,
Sure. And obviously there's a lot of different ways that we could take this, or it could be applied. We find in just discussions with people that they do it differently than us, and sometimes that's okay. I think sometimes, though, the different is in opposition to the way that God would have it be, and that might be off-putting to some, but it's like, if he's Lord of our life, we need to allow him to move into all these different areas of, be it our finances or trust in our marriage or just our relationships in general. How do we do this in a way that God set it up? He wrote it down. He gave us an instruction manual. How do we do it better, right? But as I said, we obviously do not have it all figured out. We just would like to discuss with you guys about how maybe this could be something that, again, in a convicting manner, you could take and apply it into your life to be a little stronger because of it. So
I feel like the first one that we hear a lot of different methods and ways that people do it is their finances. And so, whenever a couple is married, I don't even remember, was this whenever we got married? And it was...
Which part?
I guess you're not in my brain. But when we got married, did he ask us if we were going to join bank accounts?
Oh, in our marriage counseling?
Yes.
I don't remember if he did or not.
So when we got married, we went through, I remember we had to watch these videos from
1976. I don't even think they had video camera. I mean,
no.
They did, but they were bad.
They were old. And I don't know, I remember them a little bit, but you were at college, so
Sure.
We watched them separately. We didn't even watch them together.
I remember one time you were working in the ER.
Yeah.
And I came up and you had a slow shift, so I was like, hey, we got to get that video watched before
That's
class
right.
tomorrow.
Don't tell my employer. Not that
So
it matters now,
we
but
sat in the back and
Yeah.
watched a video that we had to watch.
I remember that.
For marriage prep.
Yeah, but they just talked, all things. So we did that little marriage counseling before we got married, but I want to say it was in one of those videos that it talked about, are you going to have separate bank accounts? And I don't think we had even talked about it or discussed it, and I think that's where probably a lot of the different ways of doing it comes from, is because there's nobody who's like, all right, now these are the things you think about, and
right.
this is what it says
Hey,
in the Bible.
I was looking forward to it. You were a working woman.
Yeah,
you were gonna be my sugar mama.
Of course you want to join bank accounts. I was the only one with a job.
Not
really.
That's a joke. That's a different conversation for a
Yeah.
different podcast. The difference is there, but no, seriously, that was Obviously at some point in time it had to be some level of a conversation, but at least for me, I don't recall anything where it was ever thought to be different. Like I couldn't imagine us not joining our finances together.
Right.
Like that's a weird concept to me personally, especially once we got married, but we hear about it being different. And so I know there's probably reasons for that. We definitely have had and found through marriage how different our financial mindset is.
Oh, there's got to be a spender and a saver.
There is a spender and a saver, I think, in all, almost always. And so much of that is, I think, God's wisdom too. We've talked about that, like, oh, thank God gave me you because you helped me learn how to save money and stuff like that. So I think there's a major strength to what God does. Like, he doesn't make mistakes. So he brings a spender and a saver together. It's not so that we could be at, opposition to one another, but in so many things, and we've had to learn through this in a lot of ways, where it's just our prayer, God, yield our wills together, like put them into one, but make sure that's underneath the will for you, God, in our life. Like, how did you see this working out? Because I want this thing. Abby wants that one over there. They're clearly in opposition to each other right now. How do we bring them together in unity for the glory of God in our life and in our family's life? Because how many times does it go the other way, where it's like, for lack of a better term, I think it's prideful, where we say, well, no, this is my thing. I want it. I want that thing, and I'm going to do anything I can to get it, right? Be it something we purchase or just something we desire or anything like that, right?
Yeah, and there are a lot of different tests. I say a lot. I don't know if I can find all of them, but I will put a link down in the notes of different tests that you can take to see. Maybe you have an idea if you're a spender or saver, but just what your money habits are, and you can compare it to your spouse's, because I know that we've done that in the past. And because there's different ones. It's not just spender or a saver. It's like impulse buyer, but a saver, and different things like that. So that just may be interesting for couples to know where they stand on that. But can you talk more about if you think that a couple should have the same bank account, or is it okay if they have like one joint, but like they each have their separate ones where maybe they're paychecks are deposited into?
Well, I think there's different ways. Every couple out there should pray about what that should be for them. But I've heard stuff like that. It's like, well, yeah, this is just his and hers, fun money. So we both are aware of it, right? We know and we have access to. I think that's a big thing when it's like, and that's another topic, is just like on the level of trust that we have. It's like, are we keeping secrets? Are we entitled to somehow now that like I've got my own stuff, my own private life in any regard? Or is it just open hand, open book, like I'm yours, you're mine. How do we do this together? And again, I think that's what it comes down to. And so I'm all about that. Like, I think that's a neat concept that I've heard people have. We've never necessarily implemented or anything like that, but it's like, yeah, we've got our joint bank account. But then we each take a percentage out of the joint bank account, and it's just like, he gets to spend whatever he wants that money on, and she gets to spend whatever she wants on that money. And it's just kind of like fun money stuff, but we're both aware of what's there, right? We're both aware of what's going there. I see it so differently at times, Again, Jesus talked a ton, probably more. I've heard it said, I've never counted, but I've heard that Jesus talked more about finances than almost anything else in the New Testament. And the idea there is that the major scripture, couldn't quote the chapter and verse, but I know it says, where your treasure is, your heart will be also, right?
Yeah.
And so that concept is so true. And so if my treasure is going over here in my bank account, right, that only Ryan has access to, it's said in scripture that that's where my heart is. And when God brought us together, my heart was supposed to be all given, in direction to you. And I work over here on me and being a better person, a better version of myself, and more yielded and led and connected to God so that I can give you a better, ultimately, product. At least that's kind of the way I think of it. And so if we're separating our finances in that way, that's my big question is, are we truly giving our full selves to our spouse? Or we got this piece of me over here that's like, well, I'll give you all this 90% of me, but this thing, which is really driving all of my desires, my direction, my choices in life, is, how financially secure am I personally, Ryan? And that's, for me, ultimately, I don't think that's right.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like, oh, that's your plan B. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, well, and I get that some people have maybe been through situations, whether growing up or something their parents experienced or a previous marriage, are something where they had to have that plan B. So I'm not speaking a blanket statement that this should fit into every scenario. However, I do feel like there can be malintention when you have your own separated, different login, significant other, spouse does not know what's in that account. And it's like, oh, this is just my little stash to run away with, which I only say that, and I think you're laughing because we have a savings account.
Oh, no, I do think that's funny, but there's a video trend you showed me, and it was traditionally, it seems as though, and it's the opposite in our life, but the wives would come to the husbands or, significant others at the situation, however it was, on the videos, but they'd say, babe, I can't pay the mortgage this month, and
Yes.
It's like the other spouse is looking at him like, you don't even know how to log into the bank account.
Yes.
And like, that's more true of what it is for our life. Like, you handle all that stuff. I have access to it. I just never get into it. You pay the bills. You do all that kind of stuff. I just don't. And I thank God
Frolic around
for you. Yeah. I just dance around like a, fairy in fairyland and saying, we're doing this today. We're doing
Yeah.
it, whatever. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm so grateful that you do that. I tell you that all the time because I hate that stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody, I've heard it said before, no one likes to be sold to, but everybody likes to buy. I love buying stuff. That's cool.
Yeah.
To a degree, I get it. We don't want to be in a materialistic setting of any capacity, but you brought something up of how much our spending habits or and the way I would say it, our relationship with money is cultivated by how we saw it modeled. And so much of that is, and I always am convicted in that. And that's what, again, I hope these discussions are deepening for anybody that would ever listen, is that we're modeling all the behaviors of our life for our children.
Yes.
And so if we want to change the next generation, it's really about showing them, having tough conversations like this, and then modeling what God laid out in his book for us, of how to do this so that our children, when they go on and they get a spouse and they start living a life, they have a really good relationship, yes, with their spouse, but with their finances, with God, with all of these different things. And so, so much of, that's what I said, we all have always shared finances, but we've had a very different approach and mindset, not just like spender saver, but just in the sense of like abundance versus lack, right?
Yes.
Like we talk about that, and that's a weird concept. I mean, the first time I ever heard that in relation to finances, I mean, again, and conceptually it makes sense, but like we didn't know that we had separate viewpoints on that because, God love them, just the way our parents raised us.
Yeah.
There's a different concept there. And it whatever is kind of, the seed might be planted, but whatever's watered, whether it's cared for, and maybe it's intentional or accidental, hey, this is what it blossomed into. And we both at maybe 5-6 years ago realized that I was definitely more tending to that abundant mindset, and you call it frolicking. That's fine.
Yes.
And you just happen to shade more to lack and scarcity. And so it's not evil. It's not bad. I think a lot of couples are probably divided there and they don't realize it. So it's just bringing attention to it.
Yeah. And I think if anybody could pick, we'd all pick Ryan's frolicking
You guys
life.
should try it.
Yeah. And really, I mean, even no matter how you grew up or what your relationship with finances and money and your mindset around that, there are so many tools, great tools that you can do to change that.
Right.
You can read so many books that just talk about, just how to do it differently, whether it's that, maybe it's your habits and you need to do them differently, or you need to get out of debt, or, all of that. There's so much knowledge out there that we can even put a few of our favorite things in the show notes as well, of just things that we've done throughout the years that have grown us together and really brought us in on the same page and just changed us.
Giving us some insight to just awareness around, deepening the conversation. I think that's really where it starts. And I heard this guy, I call him a mentor of mine. He's passed away, but his videos are all on YouTube and it's awesome. And he's kind of quirky, but he has this mindset and he talks around business and personal development and all this stuff. But he, he says all the knowledge in the world is out there for us to consume. Like there's books on how to, you said, get out of debt, or how to structure your finances, or how to pick an issue or a frustration in your life. I promise you there's a book especially in 2025, there's a YouTube channel specifically
Yes.
devoted to it. There is people, there's resources in this world where we don't have to continue to live in that. Sometimes I think we've just like, well, it's always been this way.
We just take
and
it.
it's always going to be that way.
Yeah.
Or that's how my parents' financial relationship was, or this or that, the other thing. And it's like, that does not have to be the way it is. You have the power to change it. It just takes the hard
the
thing.
desire
Yeah,
to
the
change
desire
it.
to change it and the willingness to, instead of, like I said, it might just require, well, let's not turn on Netflix. Let's open up this book. Or, hey, I was thinking we could read through this together. Would you read it? I'll read it. We'll come back. Let's compare notes, right?
Yeah.
Different stuff like that.
Yeah,
So,
it is, because I mean, we could just be numb to it and do different things to distract us, but it's encouraging and empowering whenever you get to open your mind to new concepts. Hey guys, we want you to come hang out with us this summer at the Natural Parents Expo.
it's going to be July 26th in Chesterfield, Missouri. Get your tickets at thenaturalparents.com. This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abby Hukin.
So the second, probably biggest thing
At least I
that
think so.
is a stronghold in a marriage.
I think it comes down to trust, but we see it all the time, or at least have had other conversations with other couples around these doggone devices like cell phones. And again, I mentioned sometimes people talk about it with their finances. It's like this secret life thing over here, but it's like, are we entitled as a couple, you and me? Are we allowed to have secrets? Like, are we allowed to have this private version of my life over here?
I'm an Enneagram 6, which is a loyalist, so I don't own a secret. I don't have any
Right.
secrets.
And so, no, I'm with
yeah.
you. Like, I don't think so.
No.
And, okay, again, personality type differences. I don't think that I struggle with lying. However, we've identified that sometimes I just don't forecome with the whole truth.
Well,
Like,
not even that. I just have to tell you every thought, or I
yeah,
feel like
you
I'm,
do.
yes.
It's just like, I'm going to just like not share about that piece. And then you'll be like, well, what's wrong? And I'm like, oh, nothing. Like, nothing's wrong. You're like, no, something's wrong. I can tell. And I'm like, no, it's all good. And then it's like you pull this out of me and you're like, oh, well, why did you just tell me that? I was like, oh, I don't know. I guess I just was stewing on it in my own brain, you know?
Yeah.
And so there can be a lot of different ways, but I think it, again, the most prevalent place we see it in today in 2025 is people's passcodes and their cell phones and their online life. It's not a comfortable topic for people to discuss because we have this, I think there's probably a degree of shame that comes with it, and it's tough, but ultimately that's the answer, is that we just have to, like, I heard our pastor said a couple weeks ago, like, if your spouse doesn't have or know the passcode to your phone, like, there's a serious problem, right? If you got into one of our phones, you're getting into both of them because we share a passcode, right? So, like, we have a passcode. I don't really know why. I guess just in case somebody picked up my phone along the way, they couldn't get into my bank account. But
I don't know why.
it's just always been, even before we were married, I think we had that shared passcode, so we knew. And again, there should be, I think, unlimited access to all aspects of our life.
Well, and if the person that you pick to spend the rest of your life with can't get into your phone, there is something in there that would shame you even further than that. And so then it's like, okay, let's self-check here.
Sure. And maybe it's just hey, no, that's just like, that's mine. And it doesn't have to be these dark, ominous, reasons. It could just be that you've got trust issues and you've never allowed that person and it feels scary. And maybe you just don't want them to see your purchase history again and tie back to the finances. That's hard, And so maybe that opens up. Maybe couples are listening to this right now and you guys don't have that unlimited access to each other. I just encourage you, do the hard thing. Just say, hey, could we do that? Like, I know you don't feel super comfortable with that, but like, talk to me. Tell me why. Create a safe place for your spouse to be able to share with you why they're doing that, because it could be an issue. It could be a problem. Like, I heard a thing recently. I can't quote this stat, but a gentleman shared with me. It's two crazy stats. I'll share both of them. One is that it was like 80% of professing Christians so just like, maybe not your like every Sunday churchers, but like people that go to church fairly consistently. Creasters at least, people that would say, I'm a Christian, right? 80% of those men, or maybe it was 70, I don't care I'm sorry. I don't know the exact stat. High percentages, both males and females in the church, have looked at porn in the last month. And then the other thing was like 50% of pastors have. Like, that's a crazy statistic to me.
Crazy.
And a lot of people might not even realize that as a problem, but it is, right? There's a big problem. That's a whole discussion for another day. But that is such a gateway to so much of, like, again, in my opinion, it's divisiveness in the marriage.
Yeah.
Like, I think, again, all the things that the phones have brought us, they're such good. But the biggest concern I have for any couple is that phone provides an outlet and an avenue. For me, it's like it would be a window into looking at anything that's not your spouse.
Yeah.
Like the Song of Solomon is talked a lot about, and there's some amazing, I don't know if we can put that in the show notes, but if we could, that'd be so cool. The actual Song of Solomon series that was done by Church of 1122, Joby Martin, they did this as like a 10-part marriage. Like, anytime somebody comes to us and says, hey, I had this frustration in my marriage, I have this thing going on or whatever, I always just send them that. I'm like, I promise you, listen to this. It'll change your whole world. I've never oversold that sermon series.
No.
It's that good. And so if we put that in the show notes, I will. But it talks so much in there about, our hearts and our eyes are to be for each other. Like, you are my standard of beauty in this world. Like, nothing else is. And so I don't care what else is out there. Like, God's given me eyes for you, right? And I think that's not always in our world an easy thing for either one, male or female, husband or wife, to totally live that out. Because I always say, jokingly, sex, drugs, and rock and roll, right? Like, but there's so much of that first one, the sex part of the world, it's just, we're watching a TV show the other day, and it's like, this is not totally in alignment with the way we kind of want to live our life, right? And so it's just like, it's a neat show. I like where it's going, but I don't like all this other fluff, all the sex stuff that was in the show. It's just like, that's not really for us, because if anything, it's a gateway to me. And I think we just have to be able to shut that kind of stuff off and say, you know what, that's not going to be the best thing for our marriage.
Yeah.
And I feel like we didn't even have to have a discussion around it.
We just like,
we're done with this. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just, somebody had said, oh, like, this is a great show. And, and so it is. And I think that anything like that, like, say you have a phone that you're like, oh, like, you kind of cringe a little bit when maybe your spouse gets on it. Like, you're not necessarily doing anything like super bad, but I just feel like that stirring in you is your discernment for you're not doing something
totally right.
Totally right, or that you should be doing. That stirring, that uneasiness is the discernment in you going off saying, ooh, I need to do things a little bit differently.
Sure.
And, that even goes down to books. So right now I know a big thing are, there's like book talk where they talk about all these different like books and love books and spicy books and all of that. And it's like, if the discernment in you is going off and you feel like, oh, nobody can know I read this, or I got to cover up the cover, maybe it's not the best,
sure.
And different things like that. They have, like, there's Christian book talk, sure. And they have different ones that don't have that you would feel comfortable reading. But I really do. I feel like any of that is the discernment piece going off in you that is just like, oh, maybe I should be doing things a little bit differently. This doesn't really align with me. It may be the norm, sure. But it doesn't have to be the norm for me.
I think we'll have this tendency to draw the line just right behind whatever it is, the thing that we're doing, right? So if it's like you said, a book, it's like, well, there's no pictures here, right, or anything like that. But it's like, well, what is that book talking about? Where is it setting your mind? Is it setting your mind on your spouse? Is it setting your mind on a desire for them? And again, that's a personal conversation you have to have. But I think we all do that thing where it's like, well, I'm not doing this over here. It's only this, right? Well, that just starts that slippery slope concept that I think we see play out all too often.
We do. And it's everywhere you look.
Yeah.
I don't love social media. The only thing that I actually have is TikTok, and I love it as a Google search. But it's honestly, when you are on social media, it is a constant temptation.
Sure.
Reels or TikToks or whatever else they're called, you never know what you're going to see. And I feel like the temptation is everywhere around us for all things that we aren't supposed to do, because that's this world. And so our discernment and our standard have to be at the forefront of us so that we can be like, oh no, that's not what I'm supposed to be consuming. Because like I said, the more you see it, the more you're surrounded by it, oh, your friends do it, it becomes normal, so you think it's okay.
Sure.
And that's where really you just have to be conscious and aware of the things that you're consuming and what's going on and what your standards are.
Yeah. And again, another person I listened to, he defined a little word study on the word decide. Okay, when you and I decided to get married, right? That was a decision we made together. We talked about it. Obviously, I proposed, all this stuff. Here we are 10, almost 11 years later, right?
Yes.
Maybe? So, but the word decide, de, D-E, is like of or from. And then side or scission, so make a decision, would be to cut off from. So when we made a decision together, we cut ourselves off from any other outcome, right? And sometimes I think we have to take a stand against these strongholds in our life and in our marriages, be it finances, communication, trust over devices, like all this stuff. We've got to, create a safe place for our spouses to feel able to share with us and all this stuff. But like we have to decide before we ever do the hard work of making that discussion happen that, hey, we're together in this, right? I always say, I just visualize this thing of like hand in hand, like running forward, you and me together through this life, ultimately against the strongholds of the enemy. And sometimes even us in that discussion is like, we wind up in this place of we're divided on whatever it could be. And for me, it's just a wedge for like Satan and his little minions to work its way in and just push that and drift that apart. And so whatever it could be, it might be a slippery slope. My invitation, my prayer for you guys is to not allow that to happen and take that decision, cut yourself off from any other outcome or possibility of you guys moving forward with a strong God-focused marriage. Like, do that. Make that decision and then proceed forward with any of these, hard discussions or conversations to be had.
Thank you guys for joining us today. Make sure that you listen in next week as we deepen the conversation around all things faith, health, family, and wealth. From the bottom of our hearts, we want to say thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with someone you know and leave a review. By doing so, we're able to grow this community of amazing people just like you and raise a generation of children that know God and do His will on earth. We'll see you next time.
This is the Natural Parents Podcast with Ryan and Abby Hukin.